Hello, I am Dr. Moushmi Pal, faculty member of Swami Vivekananda Institute of Modern Science, Sonarpur, Karbala, Kolkata. Today I am going to talk about the typology of tourists. Tourists are temporary visitors staying at least 24 hours in the country visited, and the purpose of whose journey can be described as leisure, business, family, or meeting. A person is not called a tourist when he or she only arrives on a contact to take up an occupation or involve himself or herself in any remunerative activity, or arrives for residing permanently in the country, intends to stay for a period more than 1 year as a student or scholar, or passes a country as passenger without stopping overnight, or arrives on a diplomatic visa or on a mission deputed by the government and avails himself or herself of the same status granted by the host government. Cohen in 1972 gives us the classification of tourist. It is considered the earliest one. He classified the tourist into 4 categories: the organized mass tourist, the individual mass tourist, the explorers, and the drifters. The organized mass tourists are those who travel in groups with a fixed travel itinerary and prefer to visit places. Further, they are the travelers with common interests that are in sync with other members in the group. Group inclusive tours or GITs usually take care of the group's tour activities. For example, the SOTC, Sindh Oriental Tourism Company, conducts the world famous tour, an outbound tour package for urban consumers in India. It ensures complete inclusion of all services to arouse interest. The individual mass tourists prefer a flexible travel itinerary that usually gives them more freedom to visit places and opt for services to suit their personal needs. They are typically called free independent travelers. Like the organized mass tourist, they prefer to have their tours organized by professional travel companies and visit common interest places. For example, affluent Western tourists with the main purpose of exclusivity prefer to have a car at their disposal. The explorers. The explorers, also called backpackers, tend to explore new places in search of novelty and authentic experiences. The travel behavior of the explorers is so unique that their primary motive is to meet the local community to learn several cultural attributes. However, they do not mind arranging their own travel plan and are satisfied with the minimum of comfort. The drifters get associated with the lifestyle of the local community and prefer to be a part of the community. Nonetheless, the stay is temporary in nature and the purpose is to study the behavior and culture of the local people. Like the explorers, there is no organized travel plan. Most of the travel decisions in terms of destination selection and place of stay are whimsical in nature. For example, students studying social science subjects may prefer to go to tribal areas to collect relevant inputs for their original research work. On the basis of type of travel experience, Cohen in 1979 classified the tourists as recreational tourist, diversionary tourist, experiential tourist, experimental tourist, and the existential tourist. Recreational tourists select destinations for physical recreation, that provides much scope for soft adventure tourism activities. Diversionary tourists always seek places to escape from the routine cycle of life at home. Experiential tourists have the quest for seeking experience by observing the authentic life of others without having any intention of adaptation. They wish to travel to places that satisfy their urge for enjoying the living patterns of the host populations without having any intentions in their life. Experimental tourist, novelty and authentic experience is the principal motivation for experimental tourists. They select new and unexplored places to enjoy the novelty and authenticity of visiting such unique places. They often like to get involved in activities that give them a rich experience and are original in nature. Some experimental tourists like to meet members of the local community to understand their culture and heritage. Existential tourist, encouraged with the richness of the local culture and lifestyle. All these 5 types of tourists wish to satisfy their travel needs in different ways. Thus, travel behavior generally captures the usual needs that generate interest to choose destinations and services as per tourist preferences. The study of Cohen in 1972 and 1979 delineated the travel needs that influence the behavior of tourists for the destination selection. On the basis of travel behavior, Stanley Plogg in 1977 classified the tourist as psychocentrics and allocentrics. Psychocentric tourists prefer the destinations and like to stay in popular resorts. They are mostly inward looking and are not keen on adventure activities. For example, Goa in India attracts psychocentric tourists since it is a familiar destination with beach resorts and typical Goa culture. Allocentric tourists, on the other hand, are opposite to their counterparts in terms of their selection of destinations. They prefer to explore new and exotic places by taking risks, and they are prepared to compromise with the facilities and services. They like places that are not visited by mass tourists. For example, exploring the Himalayas by trekking offers an unusual experience to allocentric tourists. Apart from these 2 extremes, Plogg suggested neo-psychocentrics, mid-centrics and new allocentrics. These 3 types are intermediate in nature. A majority of tourists are the mid-centrics, as it is practically difficult to be extremely psychocentric or allocentric given the general behavior of people. Thus, the organized and individual mass tourists are mostly psychocentric tourists, whereas the explorers and the drifters may be categorized as allocentric tourists. Thank you. Please like, comment, share and subscribe my channel.